I think it's safe to say that Rod Serling was a genius. He created one of the most beloved science fiction series of all time with The Twilight Zone, which ran from 1959 to 1964. And what made this series so great was its formula. You had everyday people experiencing cosmic justice served up with a side of creepiness. Sometimes that cosmic justice was swift and violent, like when a woman murdered her husband for beating her, and then he came back as a skeleton to haunt her in The Hitchhike. Other times it was slow and methodical, like how a man's greed got him turned into an immortal hunchback in The Masks. Regardless of how it was handed out, though the lesson was always the same: don't be a jerk. It was also really fun watching these people experience their fates, because they were usually accompanied by an excellent special effect, whether it was practical or just for that time period. What I want to do today is talk about some of the scariest twists from The Twilight Zone. Now, since the show has been on the air for so long, it has over 150 episodes, and many of the best ones have already been covered countless times on various channels. So I decided to put together a list of some lesser known but still terrifying episodes full of twists that will shock even die-hard fans. One such episode is the one I'm going to start with today, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. This episode aired on October 11, 1963, and was written by a man named Richard Matheson, who also wrote I Am Legend, and directed by John Frankenheimer, who directed The Manchurian Candidate. The story is about a man named Bob Wilson, played by a very young William Shatner, who is flying from New York to Chicago with a stopover in Pittsburgh. Now, Bob is claustrophobic, so his wife and kids decided to book him first class so he could stretch his legs in the extra room. As soon as the pilot announces they're about to land in Pittsburgh, Bob goes to the restroom, but on the way back to his seat, he sees something that makes him stop in his tracks. In the seat across from him is a gremlin dressed in a leather jacket and sunglasses. The gremlin looks at him and winks. At first, Bob thinks it's a prank, but when he goes to tell the flight attendant, she doesn't believe him either. After the gremlin starts making rude comments towards Bob, things escalate when Bob tries to get the gremlin thrown off the plane. But when he tells the pilot responds by saying, "What are you trying to do? Get us grounded, because some nutcase says there's a gremlin aboard." That's when Bob realizes that no one is going to believe him, so he decides to take matters into his own hands. He runs through the cabin screaming. He's trying to sabotage the plane. When he gets to the cockpit, the pilots once again refuse to believe him. They even threaten to have him arrested for trying to cause a panic. Bob then does something crazy. He jumps out of the open cargo door with the intention of swimming to the ground below. Of course, everyone tells him this is the dumbest thing he could possibly do and that he'll never survive the fall. But against all odds, Bob actually does survive the fall and lives to tell the tale. Now, the reason I wanted to start with this one was to highlight the twist ending because, spoiler alert, the entire story was actually just a dream that Bob had before getting on the actual plane with his family. So when he wakes up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, you think, okay, we're gonna see some creepy gremlin action. But nope, it's all just a dream. That's right, the whole episode was a dream. Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't scary, because it definitely was. There were plenty of jump scares and moments where you thought for sure the gremlin was going to strike, but it never did. Still, you got to admit, it was kind of disappointing. But I promise the next one won't be. It's one of the most terrifying episodes ever, and it's the one that contains my favorite twist. I'm talking about Living Doll. Before I reveal the twist though, I should probably explain the premise of the episode. It's about a widowed father named Tom and his daughter, Margaret. Margaret is being bullied at school by another girl named Tammy, and she wants a new doll to cheer her up. Her father buys her one from a local toy store called Talkie Tina. At first, everything seems fine, but later that night, Tom hears the doll speaking to Margaret in a creepy voice, and when he investigates, he finds that the doll's battery has been drained, and it hasn't spoken a word. The next day, though Margaret tells her father that the doll spoke to her and said that she would never leave her side. Later that night, Tom and his friend Pete are having dinner when the power suddenly goes out, and they hear the doll moving around Margaret's room. When they investigate, they find that the doll is now fully charged and is telling Margaret how much she loves her and will protect her. Then, to make matters worse, the doll sets fire to Margaret's curtains and then tells Margaret that she tried to save her. Margaret's father is now convinced that the doll is evil and he wants to throw it out. but Margaret begs him not to because she feels like the doll is her only friend. And even though Tom is reluctant, he backs down. Well, shortly after that, Tom is hanging out in the basement when he hears Margaret's voice coming from the floor above, and when he investigates, he finds that she's dead and the doll is sitting right beside her. Tom is horrified and he tries to kill the doll, but it just keeps getting back up. In a fit of rage, he throws the doll out of the window, but when he goes to check on it the next morning, it's gone. The police come and question Tom about Margaret's death, but he's unable to explain what happened, and when they search the house, they find that the only thing missing was the doll. Tom is then sent to a mental hospital for observation, and he later tells the doctor that he killed his daughter because she was possessed by a demon. Now, remember how I said that the show always had a lesson? Well, this one's no different. Even though this episode is obviously about fear, it also makes a commentary about community. You see, the reason why Tom was able to kill his daughter was because he was too afraid to ask his neighbor for help. Earlier in the episode, Tom needed some lumber from his neighbor, but he was too ashamed to ask, so he stole it instead. The irony here is that while he was stealing, the neighbor saw him and asked if he needed help carrying it, but Tom refused, and the neighbor walked away. The point here is clear. Fear can be debilitating. Tom was so overcome with the fear of losing his daughter that he was unable to reach out to the one person who could have saved them both. And this brings me to the twist. While Tom is in the mental hospital, he asks the doctor if he should be afraid, and the doctor replies, "You should be afraid. You should always be afraid." Just then, we hear children laughing and playing outside, and when Tom looks out the window, he sees Talkie Tina standing with them. She turns to the camera and gives us a creepy smile. And that's when we realize that the real monster wasn't the doll. It was Tom all along. Well, that's going to be it for tonight. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Top 5 Scary. If you did, please subscribe and leave a like or a comment down below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.